The sound of 100 people shifting in their seats was a dry rustle, like dead leaves, under the soft strains of a string quartet. I stood at the back of the impossibly lavish garden ceremony, hidden partially by a towering floral archway dripping with white orchids and blush peonies. Each flower probably cost more than my weekly grocery bill. This was the moment. The moment we'd all been working towards for a solid year. The moment Isabella, Izzy, Thorne had been screaming, crying, and threatening her way toward. The groom, Mark, stood at the altar, looking handsome and tragically nervous. He was a good man. Too good for what was about to hit him. And then, the music swelled. Pachelbel's canon in D. Every head turned. There she was. Isabella. My cousin. The Bridezilla. She was a vision in a custom, lace-encrusted gown that probably cost as much as a down payment on a house. Her face was veiled, but I could picture the smug, beatific smile underneath. She was getting everything she ever wanted. Everyone around me sighed, captivated. I just felt a cold, hard knot in my stomach. I'm Maya, by the way. Maya Sullivan. At 28, I'd somehow become the de facto wedding planner, therapist, and emotional punching bag for my cousin's nuptials. Not by choice. Oh no. By familial guilt trip. You're so organized, Maya, my Aunt Carol had trilled. And your family. You'll do it for free, won't you? For Izzy's big day? I was young, I was flattered, and I was naive. I had no idea the hell that free would cost me. As Izzy began her slow, dramatic walk down the aisle on our beaming Uncle Robert's arm, she passed directly by my hiding spot. Her eyes, visible through the veil, flicked towards me. And for a split second, the beatific mask dropped. Her gaze was sharp, demanding, and critical. It was a look that said, the minute this walk is over, you'd better have my champagne flute ready and my train perfectly fluffed, or your life is over. Then she was gone, the look replaced once more with serene bliss for her adoring audience. I didn't flinch. I didn't scowl. I simply reached into the pocket of my hideous, lilac-colored bridesmaid dress, a style she'd chosen specifically because she knew it washed me out, and felt the cool, smooth surface of my phone. A calm smile touched my lips. The kind of smile you have when you're holding a royal flush and the other player is about to bet their entire fortune. The betrayal wasn't an affair. It was a year-long campaign of psychological warfare, a systematic demolition of my time, my finances, and my self-esteem, all under the banner of her special day. It started small. Demands for venue viewings on weekdays, forcing me to take time off my actual job as a project manager. Then it escalated. She wanted handmade, artisan invitations. You're so crafty, Maya. I spent 60 hours and hundreds of my own dollars on materials, only for her to take one look, sneer, and say, they look cheap. We'll use the professional ones. You can pay for the wasted supplies, right? Since it was your mistake. The accomplices were my own family. My Aunt Carol, who would just sigh and say, you know how she gets, sweetie. Just keep the peace. My mother, who pleaded, she's your only cousin, Maya. Don't rock the boat. They enabled her, feeding her monstrous ego while I bore the brunt of her tyranny. She exploited my trust and my good nature. She knew I loved my family and wouldn't want to cause a scene. She used that as a leash. The real turning point, the moment it stopped being about a difficult bride and started being about pure malice, was 6 months in. My boyfriend of 3 years, Ben, and I were saving for a house. It was our dream. Izzy knew this. She called me one Tuesday night, hysterical. It's a disaster. A catastrophe. The original baker for her 7-tiered, fondant-covered monstrosity had fallen through. There was only one person in the city who could do it, a legendary pastry chef, and he required a non-refundable deposit of $5,000. Immediately. I don't have it, Maya. You have to front it for me. I'll pay you back next week, I swear on my marriage to Mark. I was hesitant. It was a huge chunk of our savings. But Ben, ever the optimist, said, she's family, Maya. She'll pay you back. We can delay the house viewings by a week. So, I transferred the money. She didn't pay me back next week. Or the week after. When I finally worked up the courage to ask, her face transformed into a mask of cold fury. How dare you, she hissed, in front of my aunt and mother. How dare you try to monetize my wedding? That money was a gift. A contribution to my happiness. If you were a real sister to me, you wouldn't even be asking. You're so transactional. My aunt had the decency to look ashamed, but said nothing. My mother looked at the floor. That was the moment I broke. That $5,000 wasn't just money. It was a symbol of every sacrifice, every slammed door, every tear I'd cried in frustration. It was my future, and she'd stolen it and called it a gift. Ben was livid. The house viewings were cancelled. The dream was postponed. And I was done. I stopped complaining. I stopped fighting back. I became the perfect, silent, efficient wedding planner. I nodded, I smiled, I said, of course, Izzy. Whatever you want, Izzy. And while I was doing that, I started watching. Listening. I noticed things. Like how her bachelorette party in Vegas, which I was forced to organize and pay a share for that I couldn't afford, had a mysterious, uninvited guest. A man. I saw the flirtatious texts on her phone when she thought no one was looking, texts that weren't from Mark. The name was Jay. I used my project management skills not for seeding charts, but for intelligence gathering. I created a digital folder, password protected and hidden. I noted dates, times, saved screenshots of her social media check-ins that didn't match her stories to Mark. The final piece fell into place 3 weeks before the wedding. We were at the final dress fitting. Izzy was preening in front of the mirror, and her phone, sitting on a plush velvet chair, lit up. It was a notification from a private Instagram account. The preview text was visible: Jake, can't wait to see you in that dress, and out of it. 2 weeks, baby. My blood went cold. Jake. Mark's older brother. The best man. The stakes were no longer just my $5,000 and my bruised ego. It was Mark's entire life. He was a kind, decent man who adored Izzy. He was about to marry a woman who was cheating on him with his own brother. I knew what I had to do. But it had to be perfect. It couldn't come from me in a messy, emotional confrontation. She would twist it, my family would side with her, and I would be the villain who tried to ruin her big day. I needed irrefutable, undeniable proof. And I needed to deliver it in a way that she couldn't intercept. The symbolic gesture was a single email, sitting in my drafts folder. The subject line was blank. The recipient field was empty. But it was loaded. It contained every screenshot, every damning photo from Vegas I'd sourced from other bridesmaids' public albums, a timeline of her lies, and a link to a cloud folder with the audio recording I'd managed to capture of her and Jake talking in the garden last week, their conversation leaving no doubt about their affair. All it needed was one click. The wedding day dawned, bright and obscenely cheerful. The house was a whirlwind of hairspray and hysterics. Izzy was at her most monstrous, screaming at my mother for a misplaced bobby pin, reducing the makeup artist to tears. Through it all, I was a pillar of calm. I fetched water, I soothed egos, I fixed the veil. I was the perfect, silent servant. An hour before the ceremony was set to begin, everyone was distracted. The photographers were herding the bridal party for pre-ceremony photos by the rose garden. It was chaos. I slipped away. I walked into the quiet, cool library of the country club where the wedding was being held. I opened my laptop, connected to the venue's guest Wi-Fi. I opened the draft email. In the recipient field, I typed a single address, marktheron@star.com. I didn't write a long message. I didn't need to. The subject line was, "The truth about Isabella." The body of the email was just 2 lines. Mark, I am so sorry. You deserve to know who you are really marrying. The evidence is attached and in this folder link. The password is the name of the street where you had your first apartment together. I knew he would know the street. It was a story he loved to tell. It was a small, personal touch to ensure he knew this came from someone who cared about him, not from a malicious stranger. My finger hovered over the trackpad. I could hear Izzy's shrill laugh echoing from the garden. I thought of my $5,000. I thought of Ben's disappointed face. I thought of Mark's kind eyes. I clicked send. The whoosh sound was barely audible, but it felt like the slamming of a prison door. A door I had just locked from the outside, with Izzy on the other side. I closed my laptop, walked out of the library, and took my place for the ceremony, my heart pounding a steady, triumphant rhythm against my ribs. The ceremony was beautiful. The vows were exchanged. They were pronounced husband and wife. Mark kissed his bride, but it was different. Stiff. His face was pale, his eyes distant. No one else seemed to notice, lost in the romance of it all. The reception began. Speeches were made. Jake, the best man, gave a slimy, overly familiar speech that made my skin crawl. Izzy beamed at him. It was during the first dance that it happened. Mark and Izzy were swaying to a love song, her head on his shoulder. His phone, which he had subtly pulled from his pocket, was in his hand. He must have checked it between the ceremony and reception. I saw him read. I saw his face change. The color drained from it completely. His arms, which were around Izzy, went slack. He stopped moving, just standing stiffly in the middle of the dance floor as the music played around them. He looked up. His eyes scanned the crowd, and they landed directly on me. There was no anger in his gaze. Just a profound, bottomless hurt. And a question. I gave him the smallest, saddest nod I could manage. He gently, but firmly, pushed Izzy away from him. "What are you doing?" she giggled, thinking it was part of the dance. He didn't answer. He just turned and walked off the dance floor, towards the private groom's suite. The music faltered. A confused murmur ran through the crowd. Izzy stood alone, under the spotlight, her smile frozen and cracking. Her eyes found me. They narrowed, sensing a threat. She stormed off the floor after him. I gave it 5 minutes. Then, I casually made my way towards the hallway that led to the private suites. As I approached, I heard it. The confrontation. It was behind a heavy oak door, but their voices were raised. First, Mark's voice, low and shaking with rage, "With my brother, Izzy? In Vegas? Last weekend?" Then, Izzy's, cycling fast. Anger, "How dare you spy on me? That email is a lie. It's Maya. She's jealous. She's been trying to sabotage this wedding from the start. Manipulation, Mark, baby, you can't believe her over me. I'm your wife. I love you. It's all photoshopped, fabricated. Begging, please, Mark, don't do this. Everyone is out there. Our families. Think of the humiliation." I pushed the door open. They both turned to look at me. Mark looked broken. Izzy looked like a cornered animal. "It's not fabricated, Izzy," I said, my voice calm and clear. "I have the originals. I have the metadata. I have the recording of you and Jake by the garden wall, talking about how you can't wait for the honeymoon to be over so you can be with him." The last bit of fight left her. She saw the truth in my eyes. She realized I hadn't been her meek little servant. I'd been her archivist. You, she whispered, her voice venomous. You vicious little. You stole from me, Izzy, I said, cutting her off. You belittled me for a year. You took my money, my time, my sanity. But you don't get to take Mark's future, too. He deserved the truth. Mark looked at Izzy, his expression now one of pure, unadulterated disgust. The marriage is unconsummated. I'll have it annulled. Get out of my sight. The fallout was nuclear. Izzy ran from the room, sobbing hysterically. The reception dissolved into chaos. The band stopped playing. My Aunt Carol was screaming. My mother was in tears, but when I showed her a fraction of the evidence on my phone, her tears turned from shock to shame. Oh, Maya, what did she make you do? What did we let her do to you? Most of the family, once they understood the core of the betrayal, the affair with the brother-in-law, sided with me, and more importantly, with Mark. The sheer audacity of her actions was too much for even her most ardent enablers to justify. Mark found me later, as I was finally changing out of the horrible lilac dress in a quiet corner. The password, he said, his voice raw. The street name. That was kind. It let me know it was you, and that you weren't doing this to be cruel. I'm so sorry, Mark, I said, and I meant it. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I needed proof she couldn't explain away. I couldn't let you marry her without knowing. He nodded, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. Thank you. You saved me from a life of lies. He paused. The $5,000. I saw that in the files. I'll make sure you get it back. With interest. Izzy's world collapsed in the span of an evening. The marriage was annulled within a month. The lavish wedding gifts were returned. The story, of course, got out. You can't keep a scandal like that quiet. Her social circle, built on a foundation of gossip and status, eviscerated her. She was a pariah. Jake, exposed as a traitor to his own brother, was cut off from the entire family. He lost his relationship with Mark and his parents in one fell swoop. My Aunt Carol, forced to confront the monster she'd created, entered a deep depression. The family was fractured, but it was a necessary breaking, like resetting a bone so it can heal correctly. Izzy had to move out of the luxury apartment Mark had paid for and back into her childhood bedroom. The fairy tale was over, and the reality was a cold, quiet shame. The poetic justice was absolute. The wedding she had used as a weapon to abuse everyone around her became the very stage for her ultimate humiliation. Mark, true to his word, wired me the $5,000, plus another $5,000 as a thank you. It was more than enough for Ben and me to restart our house fund. But the real change was in me. The doormat was gone. I had found my spine, forged in the fire of Izzy's tyranny. I started setting boundaries with my family. I got a promotion at work because I'd stopped using all my energy on wedding drama. Ben and I are closer than ever. We finally found a house we love, and we're closing next month. It's a fresh start, a home built on respect and honesty, things that were so glaringly absent in Izzy's world. I didn't just get my money back. I got my life back. My power back. She made my life hell for a year, thinking I was too weak to fight back. But you should never underestimate the quiet one in the room. We're not just taking notes for your to-do list. Sometimes, we're drafting your resignation from our lives. And all it takes is one email, sent at just the right time, to bring the entire castle down. If you felt the satisfaction of seeing karma delivered perfectly, make sure to comment and subscribe for more stories of justice served.